So today, we're going on a deep dive
Uh-huh.
into the world of journalism.
Okay.
Specifically,
Yeah.
how the SPJ Code of Ethics
Right.
is applied in Pakistan.
Okay.
You might be thinking,
Mm-hmm.
why should I care about this?
Right.
But in a democratic society,
Yeah.
journalism plays a huge EE role.
It really does.
It's how we get informed.
It's true.
It's how we hold those in power accountable.
Absolutely.
And ultimately,
Yeah.
how we make decisions about our lives,
I agree.
about our world,
Yeah.
our communities.
Mm-hmm.
So what's fascinating about the SPJ Code is that it's not just a set of rules.
It's not just rules.
It's a framework for
A
navigating
framework, right?
some really tricky situations.
Yeah.
We're talking about real-world dilemmas
Uh-huh.
that journalists in Pakistan
Okay.
face every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to unpack those dilemmas today,
Okay.
looking at the code's
Right.
4 core principles.
Okay.
Seek truth and report it,
Yeah.
minimize harm,
Okay.
act independently, be accountable,
Right.
and transparent.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the first one.
Okay.
Seek truth and report it.
Seek truth and report it.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Right.
But when you think about
Yeah.
the complexities of
Mhm.
Pakistani society,
Yeah.
it gets interesting fast.
It does get interesting.
So imagine you're a journalist in Pakistan.
Okay.
You're trying to uncover a story
Mm-hmm.
that involves
Right.
powerful individuals
Okay.
or sensitive political issues.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure to self-censor,
Yeah.
to protect sources,
Right.
or even to avoid certain topics altogether
Yeah.
can be immense.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where the SPJ Code comes in.
That's where it comes in.
It's urging journalists to be diligent
Mm-hmm.
in their pursuit of the truth,
It's so important.
even when it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
or risky.
Absolutely.
Okay? But wouldn't identifying sources be a problem in this context?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, if someone blows the whistle
Mm-hmm.
on something huge,
Yeah.
but risks their safety by speaking out,
Mm-hmm.
how do journalists balance
You're right.
transparency
Mm-hmm.
with protecting their sources?
You're right. It's a tough question.
It feels like a tightrope walk.
It really is a balancing act.
So it absolutely is.
Yeah.
There are even debates
Mm-hmm.
within Pakistani media
Mm-hmm.
about how much anonymity
Yeah.
is acceptable.
Right.
Some argue that
Mm.
too much reliance on unnamed sources
Okay.
can erode public trust, while others say
Mm-hmm.
that it's crucial for protecting whistleblowers
Right.
and ensuring sensitive information
Mhm.
comes to light.
You got it.
It's a complex issue
It's a very complex issue.
with no easy answers.
No easy answers.
So how do journalists navigate that? I mean, do they have specific methods
Yeah.
for verifying information
All right.
from anonymous sources? I'm genuinely curious
Yeah.
about the behind-the-scenes process.
I think that that's where a journalist's experience and judgment come into play.
Okay.
They have to rigorously cross-check information,
Oh, wait.
consider the source's motives,
All right.
and weigh the potential harm
Mhm.
against the public interest.
Yeah,
It's a constant balancing act.
it is.
It is.
And that brings us to the second principle,
Okay.
minimize harm.
Minimize harm.
This one seems particularly relevant
Yeah.
in Pakistan,
Yeah.
given the cultural
Uh-huh.
and religious sensitivities.
Right.
I'm thinking about issues like
Mm-hmm.
blasphemy
Yeah.
or honor killings,
Right.
topics that could easily inflame tensions
Uh-huh.
if reported insensitively.
Absolutely.
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Yeah, I think that.
So the SPJ Code emphasizes
Right.
the need for compassion
Mm-hmm.
and sensitivity,
Right.
especially when dealing with vulnerable individuals
Yeah.
or covering tragedies.
Right.
It's about recognizing
Uh-huh.
the potential impact of your words
Right.
and striving to minimize harm,
Mm-hmm.
even while fulfilling the duty
Yes.
to inform the public.
Okay.
But isn't that a subjective judgment call?
Yeah. Well,
What one person considers harmful,
Mm-hmm.
another might see
Yeah.
as essential information.
Uh-huh.
So how do journalists
Right.
navigate those gray areas?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's really.
I think that you need a strong
Okay.
ethical compass
Okay.
and a deep understanding of the local context.
Right.
Journalists have to engage in
Oh.
constant self-reflection,
Okay.
questioning their motives,
Mm-hmm.
and considering the potential consequences
Yeah.
of their reporting.
Okay.
It's a heavy responsibility.
It is.
It really is.
It makes you realize that journalism
Hmm.
is so much more
Yeah.
than just reporting the facts.
Right.
There's a real human element to it.
So,
There's a recognition that every story has the potential to impact people's lives.
It really does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why the SPJ Code encourages journalists to consider the long-term consequences of their work.
Absolutely.
It's not just about getting the scoop.
Right.
It's about contributing to
It's about
a more informed and just society. All right, let's move on to the third principle.
All right.
Act independently.
Act independently.
Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Especially in Pakistan's media landscape.
Right.
We know that media ownership can be concentrated, and there's often political influence at play.
Absolutely.
So how do journalists maintain their independence amidst those pressures?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
So the SPJ Code is very clear on this. Avoid conflicts of interest.
Okay.
Refuse gifts or favors that could compromise your objectivity.
Right.
And don't let advertisers or powerful individuals dictate your reporting.
Absolutely.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
That's easier said than done right.
Yeah, it can be hard.
I mean, if a journalist is offered a lucrative side gig by a company they're supposed to be reporting on.
Yeah.
Or if they face pressure from their editors to soften a story, that might be critical of the government.
Okay.
How do they stand their ground?
Right. It takes courage.
Okay.
And a commitment to ethical principles. And unfortunately, there are cases where journalists have succumbed to pressure.
Okay.
Compromising their independence for personal gain.
Okay.
Or to avoid repercussions. But there are also inspiring examples of journalists who have risked
their careers and even their safety.
Wow.
To uphold the truth.
Okay.
And hold the powerful accountable.
So it makes you wonder, are there any support systems in place for journalists in Pakistan who are facing these kinds of pressures?
Right.
Are there organizations or legal frameworks that help protect their independence?
That's a good question. And one that deserves further exploration.
Okay. We'll definitely delve into that later
when
we discuss the challenges and opportunities within Pakistan's media landscape.
Sounds good.
For now.
All right.
Let's move on to the fourth and final principle of the SPJ Code.
Be accountable.
Be accountable.
And transparent.
And transparent.
This one seems particularly important in a context where public trust in institutions might be low.
Yeah.
So how does this principle, be accountable and transparent,
Yeah.
how does this actually play out in practice?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, it's one thing to say
Right.
journalists should be open to scrutiny and admit their mistakes.
Right.
But how does that happen
Yeah.
in a tangible way?
So the SPJ Code encourages journalists to engage in dialogue with the public, to be responsive to criticism, and to correct errors promptly and transparently. It's about building and maintaining trust with the audience, which is crucial in any media landscape, but especially in one like Pakistan, where skepticism towards media can be high.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's say you're a regular citizen in Pakistan. And you feel like a news outlet has published something misleading or unfair. What avenues do you have for recourse? Are there independent bodies that handle complaints against the media?
That's a critical question. And the answer, unfortunately, isn't straightforward. While there are press councils and regulatory bodies in Pakistan, their effectiveness and independence have been debated. There's also the issue of media ownership and influence, which can sometimes make it difficult to hold powerful media entities accountable.
So it sounds like there's a real need for stronger mechanisms for accountability within Pakistan's media landscape.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't that be a double-edged sword?
Well, yeah.
I mean, couldn't increased regulation also be used to stifle dissent or control the narrative?
That's the tension, isn't it?
So,
finding the right balance between ensuring accountability and safeguarding freedom of the press is an ongoing challenge in democracies around the world. It requires constant vigilance, from both journalists and citizens.
This brings up an interesting point.
Okay.
The role of the audience in demanding ethical journalism.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel powerless as an individual.
Right.
But collectively, don't we have the power to shape the media landscape through our choices and our voices?
In a democratic society, the media ultimately serves the public.
Okay.
And that means we as citizens have a responsibility to be active and engaged consumers of information.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
Right.
Give me some actionable steps.
Okay.
How can we be more discerning about the news we consume and hold journalists accountable?
Okay, first and foremost, be critical.
Okay.
Don't just accept everything.
Yeah.
You read or hear at face value.
Okay.
Ask yourself, who's behind this information?
Right.
What are their biases? Are they presenting a balanced perspective?
So it's like being a detective in a way.
Precisely. Always looking for clues and questioning the narrative.
And don't be afraid to challenge the information you encounter. If something seems off, fact check it.
Yeah.
Look for corroborating evidence from reputable sources. Engage in respectful dialogue with journalists and news outlets, expressing your concerns or asking for clarification.
I think that's a good point. Engaging directly. I think sometimes we forget that journalists are human beings too and are not infallible. They make mistakes. They have biases. And they're constantly navigating a complex and ever-changing landscape.
Absolutely.
Holding them accountable doesn't mean attacking them personally.
Okay.
Or dismissing their work entirely.
It's
about engaging in a constructive dialogue that pushes for greater accuracy, fairness, and transparency.
This conversation has really made me realize the importance of media literacy.
It's so important.
It's not just about being able to read or watch the news. It's about having
the
critical thinking skills,
to
dissect information, identify biases, and form your own informed opinions.
And those skills are more crucial than ever in the digital age.
It really is.
Think about it. We're bombarded with information from all directions, social media, websites, messaging apps. It's easy to get swept up.
It's easy to get lost
in the echo chamber and filter bubbles that reinforce our existing beliefs.
It really is.
It's
like we're constantly navigating a minefield of misinformation, propaganda,
and clickbait headlines.
So how do we apply these principles of ethical journalism to our own consumption of news, especially in this chaotic online world?
I think the same core principles apply. Seek truth. Minimize harm, act independently, and be accountable. Start by diversifying your news sources. Don't just rely on one outlet or platform. Seek out perspectives that challenge your assumptions.
So it's about being open to different viewpoints, even those we might disagree with.
Exactly. And remember that just because something is widely shared or trending online doesn't make it true. Be wary of emotional appeals and sensationalized headlines. Take the time to verify information before you share it.
It's like we have to become our own editors.
In a sense, yeah.
But it's not just about being passive consumers of information. We also have a responsibility to be responsible producers of information.
What do you mean by that?
Think about the things you share on social media, the comments you make, the way you engage in online discussions. Are you contributing to a culture of misinformation or negativity, or are you promoting thoughtful dialogue and accurate information?
We all have a part to play.
We do.
In shaping the online information landscape.
We all do.
And it's easy to forget that our words and actions have consequences.
Absolutely.
Even in the seemingly anonymous world of the internet.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of accountability. Whether you're a journalist publishing a story or a citizen sharing a post on social media, we're all accountable for the information we put out into the world.
So we've talked about the SPJ Code of Ethics, We've discussed the unique challenges and opportunities within Pakistan's media landscape.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the importance of media literacy in the digital age.
Yes.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the inspiring examples of Pakistani journalists who are upholding ethical standards despite the pressures they face.
Okay.
Can you share some specific examples? I think it would be really helpful for our listeners to hear about these real-world heroes of journalism.
Absolutely. There are so many courageous journalists in Pakistan who are pushing the boundaries and holding the powerful accountable and giving voice to the voiceless.
Yeah.
For example, there's this one journalist who has been relentlessly investigating
corruption within the government, despite facing threats and intimidation.
Wow.
Her work has led to several high-profile convictions and has exposed systemic problems within the system.
That's incredible.
It really is.
It's inspiring to hear about journalists who are risking so much to uphold the truth.
It is, and there are others who are focusing on social issues, like women's rights or the plight of religious minorities. They're using their platforms to shed light on injustices, spark dialogue, and advocate for change.
It makes you realize the power of journalism.
It really does. It can be a force for good, a catalyst for progress.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important to support ethical journalism by being informed consumers of news, by holding journalists accountable, and by speaking out against unethical practices. We can help create a media landscape that serves the public interest.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
In this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored the SPJ Code of Ethics. We've discussed the unique challenges and opportunities within Pakistan's media landscape.
Yes.
We've talked about the importance of media literacy in the digital age.
Absolutely.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Sometimes I think we get caught up in the negativity surrounding the media, the biases, the misinformation, the sensationalism. It's easy to become cynical.
It is.
To lose faith in the power of journalism. But today's conversation has reminded me that despite the challenges, there are still countless journalists out there.
There are.
In Pakistan and around the world.
Absolutely.
Who are committed to ethical principles, who are striving to inform the public, and who are making a difference. It's a powerful reminder.
Yes.
And it's something we should all keep in mind as we navigate this ever-evolving information landscape.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's challenge ourselves to be more discerning consumers of information, to support ethical journalism, and to remember that a free and independent press is essential for a healthy democracy.
It really is.
That's it for our deep dive today.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.